Poetic language refers to a more artistic form of ordinary language. They are used with the purpose to convey deeper meanings, feelings, or images to one's audience. Poets pack the absolute maximum of meanings into every part of the poem, and this sometimes makes poems difficult to understand. And a hasty reader may think there's nothing to understand. This is African Literature on the NTA, the largest television network in Africa. Nene Bassi is my name, and it's my delight to have you always. This episode takes a look at the use of elevated language in poetry and the need to incorporate the layman's language for a better appreciation of the genre.
Communicating with others is a basic human need. Healthy living involves interacting and engaging with others, and our primary means of doing so is through shared language. Shared language is critical to such vital functions as business and education. We are living today in an interconnected global community where communicating through shared language is increasingly possible. However, the need to make our communication simple and effective cannot be overemphasized. Those who communicate in English as a life skill give more importance to fluency than accuracy. Pushing for accuracy is a pointless and soul-destroying process. Though many are averse to complexity, some writers in English seem to promote complexity as they are obsessed with grammaticality. Such insistence has a negative impact on learners. Complexity kills creativity, clarity, and comprehension. Complex sentences should be used in writing only when required. There is no doubt that complex sentences add variety to sentence structures, and they're needed as they show relationship between cause and effect, contrast, time relationships, and so on. Too many complex sentences in a piece of writing can cause stress to the reader. Many writers erroneously think that for a piece of writing to be considered a good one, it should be written using high-sounding words and complex sentences. If a piece of writing is free from jargon and lengthy sentences and does not cause stress to the reader, then it is a good piece as far as language is concerned. In other words, communication should be in plain language. It is writing that is clear and straightforward, targeted at the appropriate reading levels, and free of jargon that is here advocated for.
It's okay to think like a wise man, but to communicate in the language of the people.
Poetry evokes a language that moves beyond the literal, and consequently a mode of thinking that also moves beyond the literal. Poets use language in unique and often very thought-provoking. Reading poetry like reading fiction is an ideal way of developing complex reasoning and proficiency in active reading. Poetry provokes the reader to actively participate in the process of making meaning through language. When we participate in constructing meaning by reading and making inferences, we participate in a kind of performance that is very similar to the dynamics between the singer and the audience. Most outstanding poetry is deeply participatory. Rivalry of Supremacy is a collection of poems written by Francis Ogbe, born out of his concern to break the difficulty in decoding the elevated language of poetry and bring a new approach to reading, understanding, and appreciating poetry.
Rivalry of Supremacy, it's a collection of poems that I titled A New Approach to Enjoying Poetry. Most people, there's this dislike for poetry. I had the privilege of being a teacher once I taught in a secondary school where I taught SS1, SS2, and SS3. And I know we have 3 genres of literature: prose, poetry, and drama. The excitement when it gets to drama, wow, drama text and the rest of them, then prose. But when it gets to poetry, there is this lackadaisical attitude, and from the start of the whistle, the children are already discouraged. They don't like poetry at all. I also had the same encounter during my undergraduate days in the university. I did this course, Introduction to Literature. I enjoyed the course, but when it got to that point of poetry, my sister, there's always this difficulty. And unfortunately, you now have lecturers who are not the friendly type. In fact, they will now complicate matters for you. And one, you don't like poetry, you don't even like the lecturer taking the poetry. So poetry, immediately most of us scaled through that as that course. To God be the glory, nothing to do with poetry. But when I found myself teaching, I just realized that no, we need to do something about it. And when I had the opportunity, I just told myself, look, I must do something. What can I do? What can I do to make literature interesting? What can I do to attract people into that field of poetry again? One of the reasons people complain about poetry is because of the elevated language. The poet delights in coding his message. So it is now the responsibility of the reader to decode. And for you to decode, it takes high level of creativity, critical thinking. And unfortunately, the kind of people we have today, I'm not sure they are ready to do that. And because they are not ready to do that, we are losing so many people away from poetry. So I just came to this conclusion. I must do something to attract people back to literature, especially poetry. And what is that? Can I do poetry for the masses? Can I do poetry for the other set of people who don't like poetry? And that was what gave rise to Rivalry of Supremacy.
Francis' exposure as a theatre arts graduate, television producer, and voracious reader equipped him to delve into diverse issues as seen in his collection.
A graduate of theatre arts, and one of the things I know about theatre is that it exposes you. It exposes you to life. And one of the things they taught us in theatre is that you are not restricted. Also, when I went for my second degree, we're exposed to this issue of multidisciplinary approach to issue. You are not just restricted. Above all, working in the media also gave me that opportunity. As a producer, you must have taught different areas, from medicine, sociology, politics, and the rest of them. And above all, I'm a voracious reader. I love reading. I love research. So these were the things that helped or propelled me into at least addressing different issues.
In tackling the phenomenon of highly classified language in poetry, themes from everyday life comes handy.
And that's why I dedicated this poem, Just. It's like just yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And I know most writers are prophetic in nature. You see that prophetic element in there, and I know that one day, Just will rise again. And I did this poem for Just. Oh, my Just. Oh, my sweet Just. The home of peace and tourism. The center of Rocky Mountains. The home of attraction for both the blacks and the whites. Everyone wants to build on the plateau. God's own garden. Just what a beauty to behold. The waterfalls, the carefully arranged rocks, the wildlife, to mention but a few. Just the peak of God's architectural design. Then the next stanza, that was when Just was what it used to be. Look at the next stanza. Oh, my Jos, oh, my sweet Jos, what has befallen you? Oh, my sweet Jos, who has disfigured you? Oh, my Jos, who has bewitched you? Oh, my sweet Jos, who and what has impoverished you? Oh, my Jos, who has torn your clothes into rags? Oh, my sweet Jos, who are the perpetrators of this dastardly act? Oh, my Jos, may Nemesis catch up with them. May the God of the plateau expose them. What I've done is just yesterday, just today, and I'm convinced without any shadow of doubt that one day all nations will call Jos blessed once again. This is poetry for me. I have a message to pass across. I mustn't, yes, for those who want to go the other way, at least hide your meaning and the rest of them. For me, I've had enough of hiding the meaning. Now I just want the man on the street there. Enjoy my poetry. Enjoy it at your leisure time.
What is his desire? To revive poetry and bring in mass of audience back to the Ginnery.
How do we revive the beauty of poetry again? If people are complaining about the language, why do we continue that? Can we do something else with the language and still make people appreciate poetry? Basically, what I've done is this. Lend me the platform of poetry. Let me use that platform to communicate my message. Instead of going in the way of prose, no. Let me use poetry. Just give me the platform. Give me the platform. Then I can use it and communicate my message. Instead of going in the way of drama, then at least give me the platform of poetry. Let me use it to communicate my message. Still remember that poetry, when you talk about poetry, they will tell you that there are about 3 types. We have the lyrical poetry, we have the narrative poetry, and we have the dramatic poetry. But at times, you can have a poem that has the combination of all this. So, what I've done is, I've been able to juggle all these things together. Like, for instance, if you look at, as you go through my collection, there's this thing I call the prologue. Normally, you don't have prologue in poetry. You have prologue in drama. And in this collection, I have prologue and I have epilogue. What? So, for the curious mind, what's this? This one is against the tradition. But what I've done, coming from my background as a theater artist, one of my favorite scholars in theater is Bertolt Brecht. And Bertolt Brecht talked about this issue of suspension of disbelief. Why must a make-believe system? No. Can we make theater open to the people? As people have come into the theater, let them understand that, look, what you are coming to watch is make-believe. It's not reality. And that's what I've done with my collection of poems. In my prologue, about 38 to 40 poems, I gave a brief explanation of all the poems.
Rivalry of Supremacy is a title born out of his experience as a television producer.
One of the things they taught us when we were gainfully employed into NTA is that production is a teamwork. You can't do it alone. It was from that mindset, it was with that understanding, I just realized that, no, yes, if production truly is a teamwork, the producer cannot take all the credit. He has people around him that has helped him. So the producer is not superior to the cameraman, and the cameraman is not superior to the driver. Everybody has his role. But in a situation where you now discover that family members who are supposed to work as a team, they begin to pull each other down. They begin to pull each other down because somebody wants to gain ascendancy over the other. Why is it so? And that's what I call rivalry of supremacy. Why the backbiting? Why the pulling down syndrome? We're supposed to be members of one family. We're supposed to work for the collective good of a family. Why are we tearing ourselves apart? Why the rivalry?
Arts composition today beams our spotlight on a multi-talented young man who has proven his worth in broadcasting and in the literary world.
Rivalry of Supremacy by Francis Ogbe is a collection of poems with a new approach to enjoying poetry. The collection demystifies the myth of making poetry illicit and difficult to comprehend. It also emerged as a veritable tool for interpretation of life through lens of poetry. Francis Ogbe, born 20th November 1975 to Mr. and Mrs. Titus Ogbe, is from Obadibo, local government area of Benue State. He is an author, poet, and passionate television producer, a creative director, and a quintessential script writer. He attended Army Day Children's School, Zaria, Kaduna State, and Government Secondary School, Chindit Barracks, Zaria, also in Kaduna State. Francis proceeded to Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, where he bagged a Bachelor of Art degree in Dramatic Arts and a Master of Art degree in the same department. His love for education led him to acquire a postgraduate diploma in education from Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, and he taught at different levels of education, primary, secondary, and higher institution in various institutions of learning across the country. English and literature in English was his focus in his teaching career. As a passionate television producer and director, Francis has produced several programs on the network service of the NTA. Some of these include The Environment, AM Express, Contact Magazine, Food Today, Weekend Deal, and more. He has also had a taste of presentation as he presented AM Express on the network service of the NTA from 2011 to 2013, and his hard work has won him several awards and commendations from the NTA, such as Producer Best Program of the Week, AM Express, July 2011, Producer Best Program of the Week, Contact Magazine, February 2012 and 2013, August, Commendation for Hard Work and Dedication, Weekend Deal, 2015. Francis Ogbe has been able to combine his television career with his passion for writing. He has published a couple of literary and educational works. Some of his works include Catch Them Young, Rivalry of Supremacy, Let My People Go, and many research and unpublished works to his credit.
Which literary instrument gives us an insight into the setting of a literary work in terms of time and place? Well, our next segment will investigate that.
The word colloquialism comes from the Latin colloquium, which means conference or conversation. As a literary device, colloquialism refers to the usage of informal or everyday language in literature or any form of writing or speech. Colloquialisms are generally geographical in nature, in that a colloquial expression often belongs to a regional or local dialect. Native speakers of a language understand and use colloquialism without realizing it, while non-native speakers may find colloquial expressions hard to translate. This is because many colloquialisms are not literal usages of words, instead idiomatic or metaphorical sayings. They are usually used in poetry, prose, and drama. Some synonyms of colloquialism are conversational, informal, non-literary, unliterary, vernacular, vulgar, unofficial, familiar, chatty, friendly idiomatic, slangy, and more. Colloquialism can be confused with slang and jargon. Hence, these are two other ways of conversing in informal ways. The difference is that slang words are used in special social groups, like teenagers, whereas colloquialism can generally be understood across age and social-economic barriers, as long as the speakers are all from the same geographic region. Colloquialism may use slang within them, but it is not always the case. Similar to slang, jargon is used only by certain groups, but it refers to the word in particular profession. For example, the way in which lawyers speak is so specific to their profession that it is often known as legalese. Other professions that rely on exchanging complex information also use jargon, such as scientists, doctors, and business people. There are three different types of colloquialism that we can distinguish. Word colloquialism, phrasal colloquialism, authorial colloquialism. Word. Words can be colloquialism if they demonstrate the regional dialect of a speaker, or if they are contractions or examples of profane. For instance, American English differs from British use of words. Examples: truck, lorry, soccer, football, parakeet, budgie. Some words are considered profane in some dialects and not at all bad in others. Example: bloody. In American English is simply an adjective, but it is a curse word in British English. Phrasal. This includes phrases like old as heels, penny pincher, pass the buck, eat my dust. Authorial colloquialisms. Here you see, I wasn't born yesterday. There is more than one way to skin a cat. Put your money where your mouth is. You're driving me off the wall. Authors frequently use colloquialism to make dialogue sound more authentic. For instance, a writer of a contemporary American novel would probably choose the greeting, "Hey, how is it going?" rather than "How now?" Colloquialism is also important as it is used to situate the writer more decisively in a specific time period and/or a place. It also helps to expose an author's experience, time, and place they wrote in unconsciously. When used well, it gives the reader the feeling that the writing is very genuine.
I'm sure this package so far has been insightful. Time now for the African wise saying. Until next week, please remain optimistic about life.
Umesaliwa.